So today I am happy to invite to our career days that are focused in a way on future of the work, on the jobs, on the possibilities for students. This year we're also featuring very proudly career success stories of many of our alumni. And at the same time, we are also inviting a well-known speaker from the US. We have invited Benjamin Pring from Cognizant Future of Work Center in the US to join us and tell us a little bit about future of work. Maybe we don't have all the people haven't arrived yet, but Ben, maybe you could start a little bit by introducing yourself and just setting a scene for today's talk.
Yes, happy to. Thank you, Ajin. Hi, everybody. Nice to be with you. Thank you for inviting me to come along and talk at your career event. So I'm Ben Pring. I work for a company called Cognizant, which is a big technology consulting and technology services company, headquartered in the US. We've got about 300,000 people working for the company all around the world, and we work with big banks and airlines and government departments and all sorts of big businesses to help them run and optimize their technology. That's obviously an increasingly important part of the businesses that they operate. So we develop code, we manage data centers, we run processes for large organizations, say for a bank, how a mortgage system works, as just one example. So that's Cognizant, and let me just get rid of that. Can you see okay, Rija, am I on?
I don't see your screen yet. Let me stop sharing mine, and now you can go to your slides, okay?
Let me just get my slides up, and then you cannot screen share while the other participant is sharing. So I think
that is me. I am taking off our placeholder. Now you should be able to. We should be able to transfer to your screen. So
there we are.
Oh, great.
Can you see that?
Yep. Now it's all on.
You can see my screen. Okay, cool. I can see your picture on the screen as well, Elijah. I can't see my own picture. I trust you.
Normally it should be yours. Let me check on the other.
You can see me, or other people can see me. Not that there's anything to particularly look at, but
they will see you when you speak. Yeah, I will also just make sure. Yeah.
So Cognizant's a big technology consulting company. I run a group called the Center for the Future of Work in the company, which is really our group that creates thought leadership, research, white papers, videos, books, all around technology, giving points of view to our clients, to people in the market, people in colleges like you, about what we think's going on with technology and how our clients and how individuals can take advantage of all the technology that's in the world at the moment, and take advantage for themselves individually, in the groups they work in the companies they work in the country they live in. So I think Aija heard me speak at an event a couple of months ago that one of the government departments in Latvia put on, and invited me to come along and share some of those same thoughts with you guys today, around this theme here you see on my slide, the future of knowledge, skills, and abilities for a future that works. Because we all know that the future is changing, is always changing, that technology is central to so much of the change that's going on in the world. And I know many of you work studying different aspects of technology or business around technology. And so I'm excited to share some of those thoughts with you today. I'll talk for about half an hour, go through some slides, and then I'll pause, and Aija will sort of moderate some of your questions and some of your thoughts, and we'll get into a discussion, and we'll take it from there. So let me get these slides going, and as I say, I'll talk for about half an hour or so. So to start off, I'm sure this isn't a surprise to you. I'm sure you're seeing this in your studies and your life, that the robots aren't coming. They're here. Technology and robotics and artificial intelligence, these kind of futuristic technologies that we've seen in movies and science fiction and Steven Spielberg movies for a long time, that isn't really science fiction anymore. That isn't kind of just in the movies. It's becoming real in every aspect of our life. This first picture, you see the top left picture here, is of a BMW car factory. And you can see all these robotics there making BMW cars. And this is true for most of the big car manufacturers nowadays, that the cars are really not made by humans anymore. They're made by machines, by robots. I think the proportion of robotics to humans in making a car nowadays is probably about 80-20, 80% all robots. So the robots aren't coming, they're here, they're real. That's what's happening in a big industry like auto manufacturing. I'm sure many of you are talking to Siri or to Alexa, or increasingly nowadays to your TV or to your car. The artificial intelligence that drives things like Siri or Alexa, again, we've sort of seen that in movies, but we're all routinely using that now. We're all talking to our phones, and what's the weather today? Where's the local Starbucks? Again, that's real. That's very routine in our world. Perhaps you've seen the here on the screen, this bottom left image, this thing Atlas. I don't know whether you've seen this. This is another robot from manufactured by a company called Boston Dynamics, which used to be part of Google, but is now part of Hyundai, the South Korean car manufacturer. And if you haven't seen those videos, check them out, because it really is amazing. Atlas is the name of this robot walking around. You can find these videos up on YouTube very easily. And again, you look at these videos and you think, wow, this is a science fiction movie. But it's not. It's a real thing. It's a real machine, a real robot walking around in the world doing dances. The latest video they released a couple of months ago was of it dancing to a rock and roll, 1960s rock and roll song. And it kind of really blows your mind when you see this, showing you how fast this technology is developing and how real it is, and the fact that it's here in our world. And then this final little image on this first chart, X.AI is a personal assistant who schedules meetings for you. This is a small company in New York called X.AI that just produces software that schedules meetings. So it's not the scary robots, it's not Atlas, it's not the science fiction kind of version that we've got of robotics and artificial intelligence. It's just very smart software that's taking a task, scheduling a meeting, away from you. So rather than Ija and I having to spend time writing an email and sending half a dozen emails back and forward to each other to set up this meeting today, Ija could have just said to her X.AI bot, fix up a meeting with Ben for me. And then it would all happen automatically. And in a way, that last example is a better example of how this new technology, robotics, AI, machine learning, how it's going to change work and change the work that you and I and everybody does in the future. That's a better example in a way than the Atlas example, because that's still, that still in a way is kind of the future. That's still maturing. and still got to find its way into our work. It has in making cars, but there's a long way for that to go before it changes work fundamentally. But this software, this automatic software from X.AI and lots of other companies, that's changing work, and it's changing the skills, and it's changing the opportunities in front of you. So this is a big deal. This is happening right now. And the latest and sort of perhaps leading edge example of this software, which is going to change work, going to change the opportunities for you very, very profoundly, is this example here from an organization called OpenAI, which you may have heard of. It's funded by Elon Musk from Tesla. And they released this new piece of software called GPT-3 last year. And it's really extraordinary software. It's incredibly intelligent. It can write a paragraph, a sentence, a letter, an essay, write a book, just by saying, go off and write me a response to Ija saying I'd be happy to come along to the meeting on the 20th of April, something like that. And it will flesh out and write the whole email or letter for you. It's if you know much about artificial intelligence and the development of artificial intelligence in the last few years, the last few decades, you'll know the famous Turing test, which was proposed by a British mathematician called Alan Turing in the 1950s, who said that we'll know when we have real artificial intelligence when you can't tell whether the response from a question you put to a machine behind a curtain is from a person or from a machine. We'll know that we've got real artificial intelligence when we don't know whether it's a person or a machine. The OpenAI GPT-3 software is way beyond that Turing test. You simply couldn't tell whether it's from a person or from a machine. It's really kind of extraordinary. And if you're interested in perhaps studying computer science and you want to know what the real cutting edge, leading edge of this is, check this out. I think you'll be interested in and impressed. There's other software and technology that's coming into our world very quickly at the moment and is real and is going to change our world and change, again, your opportunities in your future. This is another example of what's called a digital human. You can see this image here on the right-hand side of the screen of a young woman. And you can probably tell that that's a computer graphic-based image. But when you see this talking, moving, responding to you, particularly over a Zoom call or a WebEx call, where the quality of the picture, is okay, but it's not that great. You can't really tell whether this is a person or whether it's computer graphics. The quality of the computer graphics, the quality of the interaction, the quality of the response generated by this digital human is kind of extraordinary. And again, that's the type of software that is going to spread out into work in big businesses in the next few years, starting to happen now, but increasingly in the next few years. And it's going to change the skills, it's going to change the requirements, it's going to change the opportunities for people to do, because lots of people currently work in call centers, answering questions from the public, from clients about a gas bill or about a cell phone payment or something like that. And in time, that's all going to be replaced by technology like this. This is all happening very quickly. In the US, 8 out of the top 10 hedge funds, which is a type of financial instrument that large financial institutions use, 8 out of the top 10 leading hedge funds are all algorithmically traded. They're all traded by machines, by artificial intelligence, not by people. It's not people picking stocks and saying, I think this is going to be a stock that's going to do well. All of that research, all of that analysis, all of that decision making is made by artificial intelligence. Increasingly, artificial intelligence is being used in the medical industry. And so here are some statistics you see over this X-ray that typically, historically, the best human doctor has been correct in their diagnosis of an X-ray 82% of the time. So they've got it wrong 1 out of every 5 times. 20% they make a misdiagnosis on an X-ray. The best machines, the best artificial intelligence gets it wrong 0.4% of the time. So the software is better than the human doctors at analyzing X-rays and other medical diagnoses like that. So again, this is happening. It's real. It's happening in industry at the moment. In the legal profession, there's software emerging now that can do the work that it would take a paralegal 2 weeks to do in 2 hours. Think about that, from 2 weeks to 2 hours. That's the speed, the acceleration, the greater efficiency that the software has over a human person. And of course, we're just on the cusp of a new revolution in self-driving cars, which has been coming for a while. It's still a little bit fits and starts. You might have seen the news about Tesla this week. Some people died in a Tesla car when they put it on autopilot, and they thought that was full self-driving when it's not really. It was just an assistance-based driving application. So we're still kind of edging towards that future. But again, that whole new development, that whole new wave is all based on artificial intelligence. This software, which we've seen in the movies, is now becoming real. So this is all happening in our lifetime. It's all happening right now. And if I was to sum up everything I've said so far and try and make it simple and easy to understand and memorable, and something that you can take away after this session today and think about and try and remember and try and sort of use in your studies, and then as you start off in your professional career, it's this phrase here: X plus AI. And what that means is X is whatever it is you do. You're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a teacher, you're a politician, you're a policeman, you're any type of work is your X. If you add AI to that, that's how you're going to get to the next performance threshold, the next level of whatever it is you do. So think about that phrase, remember that phrase, and think about, how can I add this incredibly powerful new technology to the thing I'm doing? Because that's the way I'm going to continue to be more productive, more efficient, add more value in business speak. And that's how you're going to continue to have a career and a relevance into this world that's changing very quickly. Now, of course, you, having listened to me for 10 or so minutes now, are probably feeling what most people feel when they hear this story, that, wow, gosh, this is kind of exciting. If you're a techie person, if you're a kind of Star Trek fan, live long and prosper, like me, this is kind of exciting. This is how we get to that vision that we've seen in movies like Star Trek and Star Wars. But if you're an ordinary person, if you're a parent, if you're a middle-aged person thinking about, job security and having to pay the mortgage, and if you're a young person thinking about, how do I get started in my career? Where do I go? How do I, fight these incredibly powerful technologies? There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of concern in the world. And there's a famous study that came out of Oxford University a few years ago that said this, that 47% of jobs are going to disappear in the next few years because of everything I've been talking about so far. If the if the robot doctor can do the work better than the human doctor, then the human doctor is going to go away. So that fear is very, very real. It's as real as the technology I've been talking about so far. And you may feel it. You may you may be feeling this yourself. And if you are, you're not alone. It's a very understandable human reaction. But if you put this into a historic context, if you kind of look back at the last 50 years, the last 100 years, the last 200 years, in a way, what we're seeing now is just a continuation of a story we've seen for a long time, since really the dawn of the first industrial revolution in the early part of the 18th century. Societies have always adapted to changes in technology, in how work is done and who does the work, but many individuals along the way haven't. On the screen here, you can see an image. This black and white image is of a gentleman called Ned Ludd. You may have heard the phrase the Luddites. These were the first people in England who smashed machines that were replacing them in the textile factories that they worked in England in the late 1700s, weaving a shirt, weaving a jacket. You know, people had been doing that for hundreds of years, the cloth to make that jacket. And then machines were invented to do that work. And Ned Ludd smashed these machines because he didn't want them to take his work away from him. That's where the origin of that phrase, a Luddite, comes from. And so there've always been Luddites. There've always been people who have been scared about the new technology coming into their lives. But we wouldn't be living in the modern world. You know, this image you can see on the left-hand side of the screen of a modern city, you know, many places around the world. We wouldn't be living in the world that we live in today if we'd smashed the machines in history of previous eras, because we would be stuck in the world that Ned Ludd lived in. We would have rejected technology, and we wouldn't have developed the societies, the modern societies we live in. And so, again, this is a framework to think about your future, your country's future, all of our futures, really, that we can't smash this new technology. We can't be Luddites, but we have to figure out the ways to adapt to use the technology for our advantage. And this is really the crucial question that you need to ask yourself. You know, when machines do more and more of the work that humans are going to do, what are you going to do? How are you going to make your future, your living, your career? And I'm sure that's something you guys think about a lot. So let me give you some thoughts, having set up this big question, on what you should be doing, what you should be thinking about as you try to answer this question. And it's really simple. It's really quite simple. You should be looking, as you're studying and as you're beginning to think about jobs, about working in an industry of the future. Because it's in industries of the future that jobs of the future are created. And if you can get into an industry of the future, even though there's going to be a lot of technology in that job, in that industry, there is always going to be a lot of need for humans, people like you, people like me, to continue to do work that we do and new work that we're going to invent. Let me give you a little example of this by just talking about one of these. I don't have too much time to talk about too many of these in too much depth, but think about this: virtual and augmented reality. I'm not sure if any of you have used these types of headsets. They're still a bit kind of silly. They're still a bit clunky. Some people kind of laugh at these. But it's very early days in the development of this technology. And I always frame it in this way, in this context, to think about these two fellows, the two men who you may recognize, probably not. These are the Lumiere brothers, who in France in the 1860s invented the technology of the cinema, of the movies. And the question I always asked is, could these guys, the Lumiere brothers, could they have imagined Iron Man? Could they have imagined what their technology would create over time? the possibilities that it would create. I don't think they could. Of course, they couldn't have imagined where their technology would go. Could they have imagined all of the jobs around the world in Hollywood or Bollywood, in India, in London, in Wellington, Italy, all the jobs that have been created from their technology? Again, I don't think they could have imagined that. So that's the way to think about virtual reality and augmented reality, these new technologies. These are going to be huge industries in the future. Goldman Sachs, a big American bank, thinks that the virtual reality industry is going to be bigger than the TV industry soon. And Tim Cook of Apple, the CEO of Apple, thinks that augmented reality is going to be bigger than virtual reality. We're going to have a sort of overlay in our glasses where we can see information and hear sounds, and that's going to be a huge new industry. You may have seen this a few years ago, Pokemon Go. You may have been playing this yourself, and a lot of people looked at this and thought this was ridiculous. It was a joke. This is crazy. But that model you can see here on the image, that's going to be a very, very big deal in all sorts of business in the world going forward. I started my career, well, not quite my started, but I was in my 30s when I started writing about cloud computing, which 4 years ago, lots of people thought that was a joke in the way that people think about Pokemon Go being a joke now. But that wasn't a joke. I started writing about it. I sort of made my professional career writing about cloud computing, and it's become a huge industry. It's changed the world. It's how we're communicating now. And I think something like virtual reality is going to be a huge wave of technology. And if you can get into an industry like virtual reality, there's going to be a huge opportunity for the rest of your career. Again, I don't have a lot of time today to go into all the detail of this, but up on our website at the Center for the Future of Work at Cognizant, which is a free website, no registration, no paywall or anything, you can see lots of reports that we've written, Jobs of the Future. We've written 4 of these, and there's some more coming, where we propose new jobs that are going to emerge in some of those industries like virtual reality that I've been sharing with you. And, there's all sorts of strange jobs. There's a quantum machine learning analyst. There's a data detective. There's a personal memory curator. Some of these jobs are very technical. Some of them aren't technical at all. So don't think that all jobs of the future are going to be technical jobs. All jobs of the future are going to use technology. You won't have to be a coder to work in many of these industries. So you'll find these reports, all 4 of them, up on our website. Check them out. They're all written in the form of job descriptions. So you get a sense of what the qualifications, what the experience, what the sort of trajectory of that job is. And a lot of people have found these interesting and useful. And there are some common themes across the 84 jobs that we've proposed. Coaching, helping people get better with their fitness or with their financial fitness, connecting people together. That's a big theme of the future. And then caring jobs are going to be increasingly important in a world where people are aging, more and more old people in the world. Using technology in caring jobs is going to be a big theme. Ethics, the notion of having machines around us, but being able to rely on them and use them safely is going to be 2 big themes of the future. And then another one is dreams, things we've dreamt of, like flying cars. They're coming real now. Sergey Brin, the one of the co-founders of Google, no longer really involved day to day with Google. He has a company called Kitty Hawk, where he's spending a lot of the $100 billion that he earned from Google on building out flying cars, which again, we've sort of seen in the movies, but are coming real and certainly are going to create a lot of job opportunities for all sorts of skills going forward. As I said, lots of jobs of the future are going to be heavily technology based. And if you're in a technology field now, that's great, because there's going to be lots and lots of demand for jobs like these. These are the top 15 jobs by salary in the US at the moment. But to think, as I said, that all jobs require you to be a programmer or technical is probably not true. And I think this is a sort of something I see in my travels, that there's this thing, I think, for young people, perhaps some of you have sort of been through this crossroads recently, the math crossroads, where by the time you're about 13 or 14, it sort of becomes apparent whether you're any good at maths, at mathematics, or not. And if you're good at maths, you can continue to go down the maths route into lots of these jobs that I just mentioned, because the fundamental underlying capability of a lot of technical jobs is capability and confidence and aptitude with mathematics. The real point, though, is that most people aren't maths-centric. I think 80% of people aren't particularly good at maths. So the real question, I think, for people like you, everybody, is how do non-maths people beat the robots? How do they keep ahead of this technology? Because if you can go down that maths road, the world is going to be great for you. There's never been a better time to be alive because technology is so important. If you're not great at maths, you're not really going to be a world-class programmer, computer scientist, and trying to go down that road probably isn't going to work out for you and be very satisfying, not going to make you very happy. So this is really the answer to this question. How do non-maths majors beat the robots? It's simply this: don't be a bad robot. Lots of human work in history is in essence being humans impersonating robots, doing robotic work. And now the real robots, as I've said repeatedly now, are showing up and are real and are in our world, and they're going to do this robotic work, and people aren't going to do this type of work anymore. So don't be a bad robot, be a good human being. Double down on the things that make you human and make you a good human being. Because I don't think you or your kids or your parents or your friends want to go to a robot doctor or a robot lawyer or a robot teacher. I think most of us want to have a human interaction, a human experience with another good human being who uses that technology to take away the robotic, boring elements of their job in the way that X.AI takes away the scheduling of the meetings that I talked about earlier on. Remember that model. That's the real model in this story that I'm talking about. So the real question for us all is this, is to be a good human being. And in the last couple of minutes, I'm just going to give you some thoughts on 9 human traits. Because I think ultimately it's not about skills, it's about human attitudes or traits or characteristics or beliefs or behaviors that are central to you being a good human being and keeping ahead of the robots. I'll walk through these 9 human traits quite quickly, and then I'll pause, and then Ija and you and I will chat and discuss this, and we'll take some questions and see what you guys think. So here they are, 9 human traits for your future. Why is my screen not working? Okay, here we go. The first one, be curious. Pablo Picasso, the famous painter, said in 1967 that computers are useless, they can only give you answers. And even though we have much more powerful computers nowadays, I think that's still true. It's humans that ask the questions. Computers can help us ask better questions, but it's ultimately us who ask the questions. And it's ultimately our human curiosity that keeps us ahead of all this technology, keeps us wanting to know what's next, keeps us wanting to know how we can add value going forward. So be curious. If you're not curious about what's going on in the world and in technology and in your career, it's going to be very hard for you. So read things like the technology review from MIT here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Read things that we produce at the Center for the Future of Work. There's a lot of information around in the world at the moment. You've got to dive in and really kind of be curious to figure out what's going on. That's the fundamental, I think, most human of our traits that's always lifted humans and societies and individuals. And I think, being curious is where you should start and probably where you should finish. Be funky. What do I mean by funky? Funky means mixing things together in strange ways, in interesting ways, in unique ways that people haven't done before. The secret of Apple's success over the last 25 years or so has been because Steve Jobs liked calligraphy. He studied calligraphy, handwriting at university, and then he got into business and he fell in love with supply chain optimization, i.e. how you make things and how you optimize the manufacturing something. Two things that were very, very unlikely, very unusual to mix those two things in one person. He was funky. And if you can mix things, strange things together, remember, X plus AI, that's how you differentiate yourself. That's how you stand out. That's how you're different from all of the other people around you, and how again, you sort of create a career for yourself, which is an unusual, funky career. Be flexible. You as a young person, you've got to go into the workforce. You've got to be completely adaptable, changing, happy to do different things, to take on new tasks. If you're too set in your ways, I only want to do X, I don't want to do Y, again, that's not a great approach to take. Be funny. People like to work with other funny people. People like to work with people who brighten the day, people who are smiling, people who are happy, people who are enjoying the journey. I think the highest human creativity is the ability to make somebody laugh. If you can do that, then again, people are going to like you, people are going to want to be with you, to work with you, and that's going to be a very important thing for you. I think in a way, the real response we should have to worry about the robots is here, captured in this image by, some of you might know this guy, Jimmy Fallon. He's a late night talk show host here in America. He just laughs at the machines, laughs at the robots. That's the real response we should all have. We should be, laughing. We should be happy. We shouldn't be worried and scared and timid and shying away from these things. Of course, being funny is difficult, but everybody can be likable. And again, in a big business, you'd be surprised how often it's the people who are likable, who are easy to work with, who are sought out by other people. People don't want to work with, unpleasant people, with jerks. They want to work with good people, likable people. And that's a real human trait for everybody's future. Be loving. At the end of the day, love is all you need. And even though the world, as I've been saying, is more and more technological, it's really the people who take care of other people, as I said earlier on. Many of those jobs of the future are all about care-based jobs. Be loving. Again, people will seek you out and work with you and want to work with you if you have that as part of your DNA. Be suggesting. What do I mean by this? If you think about Amazon, what Amazon does is says, if you like this book, you'll like this book. It's suggesting things for you, the next thing that you might want to buy. And again, I think we all can be the human version of that algorithm, be suggesting. In business terms, that's called adding value. Have you thought of this, boss? We could do this. What about that? Offering ideas and options and alternatives and creative thoughts. Again, that's going to differentiate you away from people who want to be told what to do, who don't really want to know what's coming down, who want to be kind of in their little box. Not a good place to be. And then lastly, be closing. In the sales industry, there's a phrase, ABC, always be closing. The salesman, the saleswoman is the most important person in any business. If you can sell something, you're always going to have a job. You're always going to have a career and opportunity. And software and technology is not going to sell itself anytime soon. So if you're a closer, if you're a killer, if you can sell things, then again, that's a human quality. Not everybody has that. It's a very rare, precious human trait. If you can develop that, then again, you're going to have a great future. And lastly, be smart. We've got to be smarter than the machines. And I know you're all working very hard at RISEBA to be smart. So that's the right thing to do. So I'll pause there. I know I've gone over a little bit, Adria. I apologize for running a little bit late. You plus AI, not X plus AI, you and AI, we sort of know what's going to happen going forward because we've seen it in history in the last 100 years. 100 years ago, 80% of people worked in farms to make the food that we eat. 2% of people work in farms now. In the next 50 years, the same thing is going to happen in these cubicle farms. Don't go into a cubicle farm. If you get a job and you're stuck in one of these, worry. Think to yourself, that's not the place I should be, because these jobs are going to be replaced by the software, the technology I've been talking about. And that isn't going to be a good place for your career, because that is really the story of business in the next 50 years. We're at this crossroads I've talked about. One journey, one road is good, one road is bad. And I hope I've given you some thoughts about how to kind of go right here at this crossroads, and how to take what you're doing, what you're studying at the moment, and build a successful career for yourself. So, Adria, I'll pause there and see if anybody's got any questions or thoughts.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's not a problem at all that you took a longer time for your lecture, because I think it was a lot of value added. And now we are going to open for discussion. I will then pause the recording because then discussion is private views and things. But let me ask the first question as I am hosting the event. I was wondering what new perspectives into your thinking about future of work and where we're going as a society. What did the COVID and the sort of lockdown thing and the prevalence of remote work, what does that add to the perspective of where we're going in the way we will be working and in the way we as a society develop?
No, it's a great question, Adria. No, I think this experience we've had and we're still having, unfortunately, has made a few things quite clear. One is that technology is completely central to every aspect of our world now. I don't think, if this had happened, if this pandemic had happened 20 years ago, I don't think we would have locked down like we have done, the world has locked down, because people wouldn't have been able to continue to work from their homes like many people have been able to do. And e-commerce and e-retailing and online selling was hardly a thing then. So technology is completely central. If you're a business and you've got a good channel to market, as business people talk about, if you've got a good online platform, then you've probably done fine. Your business has probably continued to do very well. If you haven't, you're probably in a big trouble at the moment. So again, that proves that technology is completely central to our world now and will continue to be even more central to our world. And then, and because of that, everything I've said about technology-based skills and then the attitudes around those skills, I think has become even more important than it was a year or so ago. I think we've realized through this pandemic that we can do what I call heads down work, typing, coding, stuff on our computer. We can do that heads down work from anywhere. You can do it from your bedroom, your parents' bedroom, your apartment, your dorm, your house. We can do that work pretty well. That work has held up. Students have probably continued to write their essays, et cetera, and that's held up pretty well. But the heads up work, where we're looking at each other in the whites of our eyes, we want to be together, we want to be collaborative, we want that creative energy of being together and arguing and, that's wrong and you're right, no, that's a good idea, I like that. All that sort of creative energy, we can feel that hasn't held up as well. We're all struggling with, Aja, you and I were talking about this earlier, about Zoom fatigue and being online the whole time. It's getting more and more boring and tiring, and we can all feel our energy sort of diminishing. And so if you buy that logic, if that separation between heads up and heads down makes sense, then I think what that means is as we come out of the lockdown, and hopefully we will come out of the lockdown fairly soon, I think we can think about an office or a classroom differently than we did going into the pandemic. And we can realize that we don't really need to come to an office to do the heads down work. We don't need to come into a lecture hall to do this. We need to come together to do this. And we should redesign our spaces, our physical spaces, our offices, our classrooms, so we don't have technology between us. So we don't have people just looking at their phone the whole time, but we're fully engaged, fully present in a human interaction when we're physically together. And I think that's going to be a big deal going forward. I think that's going to be a big change in our world. It's going to, with lots of the big businesses that we work with, they're thinking we don't need as much office space as we had, and we need to redesign the office space that we've got. So we bring people together so they're together. So technology is more important than ever, but at the same time, understanding technology's role in how we interact. I think we've got a better sense of that now than probably we had 14, 15 months ago.
That's a very good answer. Really, we'll keep in mind that idea of the heads down work and the one where we are connected when our eyes are present, our attention is present. So now I will finish the live event on Facebook, but continue for us here, and also mention that tomorrow, for those looking for work, we have a great event tomorrow at 12, where you can meet potential employer with 13 employers present, all in English. So those who haven't registered should definitely do so. So now I will open this for the possible questions from the audience. You can either write it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and also show your face and ask the question. I think Ben will be most happy to give you an answer. Okay, someone, any questions?
Yes, I will ask. Okay, go ahead.
Bye, you can start then,
Okay. I had a rather philosophical question about this technology development. In your opinion, we all living in cycles, like, economical cycle, product development cycle, etc. and we all know that history tends to repeat itself. So, in your opinion, how far do you think we are in technology development? So when we are going to reach this the pinnacle, and when people will actually start coming back to like the way we used to live, like I don't know, 20 years ago, because it's technology is also like a pollution. I've sometimes heard this comparison, like plastic was innovation breakthrough. Now we are getting rid of it. So what's your take on technology development?
What a terrific question. Thank you for that. I think about this a lot. I wish I was in Riga and we could go and sit in a bar with a glass of red wine and talk about this for hours.
Yes.
Well, here's a few thoughts. One is, I'm sure you're familiar with, it sounds like you've read quite extensively about this. You've heard of the first industrial revolution, the second, the third. People talk about the fact that we're now in the fourth industrial revolution. The World Economic Forum, the people who get together in Davos in Switzerland every January, talk about the fourth industrial revolution. And I think that although we're 70 years into the computer age, the first commercial computer just celebrated its 73rd birthday, we're probably only a third of the way into the fourth industrial revolution. If you think about the first industrial revolution, it lasted for about 30 years. The second lasted for about 50 years. I think we've got a long way to go, probably another, certainly the rest of your working life, certainly the rest of my working life, I would say the rest of your working life, where technology becomes more and more central. There's more and more innovation, there's more and more disruption, there's more and more technology created and used in the world. So that's my framing thought. Now, what you raise, which I think is very, very interesting and very, very real, is that a lot of people don't like technology. And a lot of people are turned off by technology, and a lot of people feel uncomfortable with the pace of change in the world at the moment and how quickly everything's becoming based around an app on a phone and how everything seems to be collapsing into our phone. And a lot of people, not just older people, I think a lot of younger people as well are turned off by that. Social media is a great example of that, where there's a lot of people who are increasingly questioning the role of social media. And I think that's a very real phenomenon. I think it's very realistic to imagine that some people kind of withdraw from this. They sort of say, like you said, stop the world, I want to get off, I want to go back. I think you can see this in political context. I think in America in the last 4 years, that's been really the Trumpian phenomena. Brexit in the UK is another version of this. I don't like the way the world is going. It's changing too quickly. So I think you're onto something, and I think there will be commercial opportunities for people to offer a non-digital version of the future. Again, if you're familiar in history, the arts and crafts movement in architecture and in interior design, in furniture, in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s in the UK, in Vienna, in New York, in America, was a reaction to the second industrial revolution, where people wanted an alternative. And I think to sum up all of those thoughts, and again, we could talk about this a lot more. The question is, does the rejection of technology in the next few years by some people, does it amount to anything more than that's a new version of that arts and crafts movement in history, which ultimately didn't really stop mass manufacturing? It didn't stop, furniture being made and clothes being made in cheap locations around the world. It became almost a luxury item for people who could afford a $5,000 chair as opposed to a $50 chair from IKEA. That's really the sort of philosophical debate, to use your word, that I think we're increasingly going to have. But ultimately, I think technology is so powerful and there's so much commercial motivation behind technology that it's hard to imagine that sort of technology doesn't continue to be really extremely central to everything going forward, certainly for a long time to come.